Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex. This is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Friday, so we are looking at some Todd McFarlane. It is his early 90s run on Spider-Man. This is issue 8, cover dated March 1991, and this is part 1 of 5 of the Perceptions storyline. Reminding you that on this series, McFarlane's been given the okay to write the series as well. It's his first writing gig, right? So this is just, issue 8. That's, I guess, the 8th issue of comics he's ever written. And McFarlane decidedly is going into very dark, horror tinged, parts of the Marvel universe, I guess, that necessarily, Spider-Man kind of brushes up against in the 70s and 80s, but generally not quite as deeply as it does in this, as he does rather, in this Todd McFarlane series of Spider-Man. So starting with Torment, which is pretty dark and horror, definitely a horror story, the Hobgoblin Ghost Rider two-parter in the last issues in 6 and 7. So he's really going down that horror route, and I guess meeting some resistance with Marvel, right, when it comes to the gore and stuff. Although with this issue, I've got some questions because, how did some of the stuff in this issue get past Marvel editorial if, they were so hung up on Juggernaut just getting stabbed in the eye, right? Who's a kind of a fictional character and doesn't exist and has powers and stuff. And in here, we'll be seeing some stuff where, once again, doesn't offend me particularly, but I'm surprised that, the Juggernaut stuff would be a problem and not what's going on in this comic here. But when we get to it, I'll point out what that is. Great Todd McFarlane cover once again. Some weird things going on with the character's leg. This has been addressed before. I still think it's a pretty cool Spider-Man image. And what I like in this is the design he kind of used for the forest. Some of the leaves and some of the kind of splotched on shadows that he did here. That's kind of a rougher effect and something I'm not used to seeing him do. So it's interesting to see him try some different stuff. And I think it works pretty well here overall. So that's it for the cover. We've talked a little bit about kind of the context. Let's open up this comic, have a look inside. So we start off with our good old vertical panel, right? The 90s staple that McFarlane popularized. And I will say this, Tom McFarlane is Canadian. I'm Canadian. I did appreciate as a kid that this story took place in British Columbia, I'm pretty sure. Maybe Alberta, but I'm pretty sure it's British Columbia, which is on the west coast, right? Above Seattle, the state of Washington, for you Americans out there, if you didn't know. And right off the bat, what I want to say here is I like how he's kind of setting the mood with the artwork, and I feel like the colorist is doing a really good job as well with a lot of blues here. So it's either like when the sun is setting or when just before the sun rises in the morning. There's a mood to it that I think is really good, and that Todd McFarlane does really well with the art, and these flies coming in, and that the colorist definitely works in tandem with and works well with. So let's talk about the credits. Artist, writer, Tom McFarlane. Letters, Rick Parker. And color, Gregory Wright. So good job, Gregory Wright, on this page for sure. It looks awesome and very moody. I like it. So what we're going to find out here is that basically Wendigo digs up something. We're kind of like, this is, again, that horror bent that McFarlane brings to Spider-Man that he will definitely continue and pursue and push further in Spawn, right? It's like he's kind of practicing it here, trying to test the limits maybe of what Marvel will allow him to do, right? I feel like that's a little bit of McFarlane's character, right, to try and do that. So what he's got here is the Wendigo, who's kind of like your Bigfoot kind of character, right? The Bigfoot legend. Digging up this body, and once it's been pulled out, I mean, maybe not so obvious here. He does keep it in shadows and you don't see much, right? It's kind of Marvel censored in a way. Almost looks more like a mummy or something. But you can definitely tell he's been maimed and he's missing a leg here, right? So it's, there's a bit of that gory aspect here. And I mean, we're left to wonder, is this, does the Wendigo bury his prey and then eat it later or something? We don't know much about the Wendigo, if he's a meat eater, all these things. So he's dug up this body. What's going to happen, right? He's a big, scary looking monster. So, they're throwing the patsy in right away in this storyline. No spoilers, but yeah, it's a slight spoiler. Wendigo is basically a patsy in this story. Good use of silhouette here, helps cut down on some deadlines. And basically what happens is Wendigo finds himself on the road, cars coming up, crashes into him, like you would think. I guess this happens with deer and other animals, so it's kind of like hitting a huge moose or caribou or something. So Cars destroyed, again, deadline kind of stuff. Not a lot shown of this whole situation. You get the debris here, which McFarlane always says he loves drawing. He's good at, for sure, works. But he's really getting out of it really quickly with the artwork, right? But he's got just enough where, like, we understand, the lights and stuff. I guess the smoke scares the Wendigo off. And, of course, he leaves the body behind, right, of this young boy to be found by whoever crashed into him, who's, I guess, not dead. Surprisingly. Oh, okay, so it's this lady. She's got a bit of blood on her, and she discovers the body. And McFarlane here, as you can see, he's drawn more mutilation with, missing finger here on this young boy. And I guess he's cleverly using some of the design elements here to hide some of it, right, to make it a little less horrific. It is a Marvel comic, but this is the kind of stuff I am surprised that Marvel, let him get away with, as opposed to, a magical character like Juggernaut getting stabbed in the eye. Not that I'm against this. That's not what I'm saying. I'm fine with it being in the storyline, and that I'm fine with the idea that, Spider-Man, the Spider-Man title that Tom McFarlane's basically in charge of, is decidedly darker, right? And more, again, we didn't know this yet, but Spawn-like than the other Spider-Man titles, which are obviously more lighthearted, but that'll eventually follow kind of some of the tone from this. And again, he's establishing a lot of exposition of what's going on, basically. But it's great because visual storytelling, you can tell right away, right? The parents crying. You don't have to read this. The police, looking into it. Everyone's out there hunting for the Bigfoot creature, right? And he's, obviously staying away, right? I guess that's what's implied by here, right? Ooh, I know what's going on. I'm watching you guys, and I'm staying in the shadows, right? Good storytelling on this page. He gets through a lot of exposition with a clever kind of arty design. I think it's really good. And all of a sudden we break to Spider-Man taunting Jimi Hendrix. I couldn't quite put my finger on it as a kid, but I was flipping through this issue before the review, and I figured out that, yeah, this guy looks like Jimi Hendrix for some odd reason. I'm not quite sure why. And apparently he was, he was threatening an old lady with a knife or something, and Spider-Man's, like, Tom McFarlane, again, this is a bit of Tom McFarlane talking through Spider-Man, using him as a cipher, and what he would do with Spider-Man's powers to those criminals, right? So he's being kind of sadistic, and like that, he's tied him up with these webs, and he's sitting on his back there. I'm sure that doesn't feel very good, even though not condoning a criminal, obviously. But, you'd think Spider-Man would be a little bit better than that. Could be wrong though, but this is the Tom McFarlane Spider-Man, right? Again, I just think this is Tom McFarlane speaking through his cipher, here in this comic. And then he ends it all off with a great, once again, Tom McFarlane shot here. I've mentioned before in some of the Amazing Spider-Man issues, this twisting of the anatomy and the foreshortening was a little bit off. But for the Spider-Man series, he's running on all cylinders, and this is another great shot. Even though it's exaggerated and cartoony and stretched out a bit, I think the anatomy works overall, and it's just a really great shot here. Here's one instance where that chubby kind of leg thing that he does, I feel actually kind of works from that angle. I guess it would kind of look like that. And even if it doesn't necessarily look exactly like that, there's just something charming about it and interesting. And yeah, I just find this is a good one that works. And, having the buildings at a extreme diagonal here really flips, the horizon line stuff, makes it more dynamic, right? Great shot. And of course, he's got all the spaghetti webbing you could ever want here, everywhere, all over the place, creating those, as he's mentioned before, those different layers of depth in the image, right? This is something like it's a double page. Let me start that off again. It's a kind of a double page splash in as far as this panel here, and then you get more of a sequential thing down here. I think that looks cool. That works great, right? Good design. The fact that he has the balls up here to not, most people would make sure that all of Spider-Man's figure is in the shot here, right? Clear storytelling, this and that. The fact that he has the balls to just crop it to the point of cutting right here, but that's something I've talked about, I think, before with McFarlane. He's a master cropper. I know that sounds really weird, but there's a way to crop that works. And in this instance, what this does here is it makes it so we can draw Spider-Man even bigger, closer to us in the frame, creates more levels of depth within the image, and he's so big and so close that he's popping at, the rest of his body is outside the frame, right? So that once again implies how close he is to us and adds to the dynamics of the whole thing. If he had drawn the whole Spider-Man, it would still be cool, but this cropping is very clever and brings Spider-Man even closer to us from a visual standpoint, right? Definitely in the foreground. So Spider-Man basically goes to Daily Bugle and is told to go investigate with this reporter here. So he's going to take pictures and see what's going on up in Canada with these child killings, right? Town gripped with fear. Did they find another body yet? Or they're going to? They've just found the one, I think, at this point. So we're in Hope, British Columbia. Not exactly sure exactly where that is, but maybe Tom McFarlane lived there for a while, and that's why he chose that town. I know, obviously, it's in British Columbia, but I lived as a kid in Victoria, British Columbia, which is on Vancouver Island. So I'm not familiar with Hope, British Columbia, specifically. So we get more information from the reporters and stuff, and we just kind of get more exposition, more kind of narration. All the while we see Wendigo here eating some meat. So that answers your question. He does eat meat. So you got to wonder what type of carcass is he chowing down on here, right? So there's setting the doubt that Wendigo could actually be the child killer. Some great McFarlane caricature here. I love that kind of turkey-necked fat character he does. You know, he'll do it later with Sam and Twitch. Sam, obviously the character of Sam. But he does good practice here with the mustache and everything. Yeah, very, very cop-like. Weird-looking dog here. Almost more like maybe like a cat. I don't know. McFarlane's not the best at animals. I think the profile, he did well. This one's not bad, but he could have just stretched that out a bit here. Giving that dog a longer snout. This is another kind of creepy shot, right, of the child's very, you know, I feel like he probably looked at some actual like murder scene pictures or something like that, right? So, because that's what it looks like. And he kind of purposely obscured the face, or the face is turned down or something, you know. Didn't quite make it as graphic as he would in Spawn with this kind of material. Keeping it all in kind of in silhouette here in the body and stuff. But, you know, as a kid, as I was reading this, I was like, this is some pretty dark stuff, right? It's you don't see this kind of stuff on the news. You hear about it, but they don't show you stuff like this, right? Even though it's in silhouette and whatever, you're kind of on the ground there of police officers picking up dead children. So again, how McFarlane was able, he was very popular and selling shitloads of books at this point. So, you know, I guess Marvel just let him do anything, or almost. Or again, that's what I don't understand, where he had that huge issue with the Juggernaut. And something like this, apparently there were no issues, right? No problems at all. And again, I'll reiterate, I like the storyline. I have no problem with the subject matter. I'm fine with it. Nothing against it. This thing he used to do, I think he did this in Amazing Spider-Man a few times, but he brings it back here. Kids today might not know what this is, but that's the old phone cord from the telephone to the whatever unit was plugged into the wall there back before wireless phones, right? I mean, I think your grandma might still have one of these in her basement or something, right? It's a fun design element for sure, you know, framing the conversation with, you know, the tool that they use to communicate. Another kind of cool, moody, foresty shot of the Wendigo here. And I don't know about the inking, if there's any ink help or assists in this issue, but somewhere during this Perception storyline, he gets help from Rob Liefeld and I think Eric Larson and other guys to ink pages. So I'm wondering about some of the pages in here, but I didn't see, you know, the really clear telltale signs of other inkers. So I think it's another issue. I don't think there's any help in this one here specifically. Although I could be wrong on that. And here we get a little taste of our guest star who's going to be in here for the rest of the series. Our favorite Knucklehead, some people call him. Our favorite Canadian Wolverine. And of course, McFarlane just gives us the money shot at the end, which is cool, right? Page turn, cool shot of Wolverine, and the issue ends on that. So you definitely want to see the next one, right? Because you want to see Wolverine, and especially Wolverine drawn by McFarlane, which is always a nice treat to see McFarlane draw other Marvel characters in the Marvel Universe. He always finds a way, though, of doing just something a little weird or odd with it, which I don't know if I hate or love. It's a bit of both. Like, I think this drawing overall, the anatomy, the pose and stuff is great. I love it. It's got that McFarlane feel, the details, the noodling, all that stuff. Then when it comes to the face, it all works, except like why all of a sudden does he have this kind of, you know, hook nose kind of deal, which I don't think Wolverine's ever been really represented that way. But all of a sudden he does it, and it's like, I don't know if it makes it kind of weird and odd, and I don't know again if I love it or hate it. There's a side of it that I think annoys me, and then there's another side where I'm like, that's pretty ballsy to do, and you know, the whole figure still works, looks great. Got the old full moon in the background, pretty close to the earth there. Hope it's not like crashing down. Of course, it's, you know, design. McFarlane has a good sense of design, so he uses it, right? So big moon is obviously cooler than small moon. That's all. And that's how they leave us. Bigfoot attack. Hunters left alive. So what's being... Oh, yeah, that's... I forgot about this series. It's kind of a Dark Knight thing he does, but with the newspapers, which is clever. A little bit different than what's been done before with Frank Miller. So in this case, they're claiming Wolverine attacking these hunters is Bigfoot attacking them, but they didn't die, right? He didn't kill them. It was actually Wolverine. Oh, you Wolverine. And there you go. End of that issue. No letter page or nothing. And that is my review of part 1 of Perceptions. Spider-Man issue by Todd McFarlane. Guest starring Wolverine. Those of you who are still subscribed, thank you so much. If you're still watching the videos, I really appreciate you doing so. It really helps out the channel. Those of you who are not subscribed but watching videos, please do so. It's really quick for you, and it helps us get out there to more people who are like-minded and appreciate the same kind of content and videos as you guys do and as I make here on the channel. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Everybody out there, have a great weekend. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13. 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at kingcomics.ca, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like! Subscribe!